This is the Business Stuff Podcast. This is where I will share the lessons I've learned from advising thousands of businesses over almost 30 years. Each episode will give you practical insight to allow you to learn from other people's mistakes. I'll be pulling in experts from our team and the world of business, and together we'll make sure your business is giving you what you want. My name is Martin, and this is the Business Stuff Podcast. Hi, it's Martin from the Accelerator team. I'm here with Jack again. Hi, Jack.
Hello.
How you doing? Hi, Jack. I like that.
We've been doing this for, I don't even know how many episodes, and you've just worked that one out.
Yeah, hi, Jack. I do like it. I haven't got a follow-up though. I'm just going to, something will brew.
We're not on an airport, it's fine.
So, we're going to talk about the importance of corporate governance again with it, an ESG theme. I know it's something that more and more businesses are asking us about, and they don't know where to start. Mm-hmm. And there's a possibility of covering some of the topics we've already talked about in our previous episode here. But you've put together a kind of like an outline of things to think about, and and I think
put some effort into this.
And I think it's reasonable that we go through it.
Yeah. Please do. So, I know you've read it, so
luckily the titles are numbered, so
yeah.
we're going to start at number one if that's okay.
Well, I suppose before we get on to number one.
Yeah, but I was going to say, do you want to set out set the scene, I suppose?
The landscape.
Yeah. So what's happening?
Yeah. So corporate governance is a term which has often been saved for big businesses, multinationals. I think it particularly became important around like Enron. I don't remember it, but I'm sure you do.
Yeah. I nearly said I was there.
You were there. You were involved.
I was in the industry at that time.
The linchpin.
Yeah.
Which is
I didn't have a shredder. I wasn't shredding.
But those sort of instances where like multinational huge businesses were caught to be doing things that were not correct.
Yeah. Criminal, frankly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I suppose.
Never mind immoral.
We don't have to start using the words allegedly.
There was extreme examples of illegality.
Yes, but that kind of brought to the fold, like, well, what are the accountability checks involved in, particularly in big businesses at the time? Like, how do we stop directors from doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing? So this idea of corporate governance came in, where there were checks and balances and accountabilities put on, specific high-powered individuals within a business to ensure that that sort of thing couldn't happen again. And like most things that start off in a large business, it trickles down into smaller businesses. So kind of what we're focusing on is why good corporate governance is important for kind of the SME and owner business managed business sort of area. Yeah.
Again, there's an attraction to getting this right, isn't there?
Definitely, yeah.
This isn't, something that more people are aware of is probably health and safety. Mm-hmm. So, got to do the healthy safety. Yeah, but you do it so your employees don't lose fingers, arms, hearing.
Exactly, yeah.
And a good, safe workplace is a better workplace for people to work productively. Mm-hmm. So, ESG is probably in the, ESG stage for the SME market, I think, but there are more and more people kind of going, no, we need to get this right, and there's good reason to get it right.
Yeah, but you're totally spot on there. That it does have a benefit to it, and I think particularly when you're talking about governance, which is the G in ESG, I think people are imagining, I'm a one-man band director, so you're telling me I have to have board meetings and sit there by myself and chat to myself, and it's completely pointless. Yeah. That's not what we're talking about here. There are specific things within that governance area which you need to be looking at, which make you more attractive as a business.
And again, you might not care. Mm. If you're a one-person business who gets all of their work off a Facebook group, and you're just going to get it, who cares?
Yeah.
But again, it will eventually impact on most business.
Yeah, and it's
not necessarily all, but most business will be hit at some point. Because even if, and I think we touched on this last one, what you see now are, government tenders will insist on certain criteria being in place within businesses who tender for government work.
Yeah.
Big business will start to do that. Some big businesses are already doing that. So, in turn they'll say it's not just the person providing, it's your whole supply chain. Mm-hmm. We want to verify your supply chain, which is impossible at the moment for some things. Mm-hmm. But if you want to be in that mix, you're going to have to comply and get in at some point. Right?
Absolutely. When you look at the food chain, like a lot of businesses obviously there are, like, business to consumer is slightly different because your end customer is your the wider general public.
Yeah.
So you may not necessarily have that kind of pressure from them. Saying that, I think consumer trends are, they are going to be changing, so that still might be an issue. But yeah, when you're dealing with other businesses, and you're not always dealing with like small businesses, like there are a lot of one-man band consultants that are doing big work for, big national chains. Like, even those people are going to have to be shown, like, I'm sorry, in order to work with us, you've got to do this. So yeah, right, there is going to be pressure on people, and it is going to affect people if they like it or not.
In not using that logic, if you're an aspirational business, you want to grow, you want to get those big contracts, then plan for this, plan to hit against this at some point.
Definitely, yeah.
If you're happy not growing, like if you're a nobody admits that. Everyone's aspirational.
No, I'm fine.
Yeah. Do you want to grow? Absolutely not. I don't want to make any more money.
Not interested.
Most businesses are aspirational, so you should plan to encounter this at some point. And even if you don't necessarily do everything today, now, being aware of what you need to think about and why you would think about it, I think is always worth doing. Totally. It's better to do it before you need to, instead of what is it? I'd rather have a gun and not need one than need a gun and not have one.
I didn't know we were getting into sort of Second Amendment rights here.
No, that was Tarantino from True Romance.
Oh, right, I see.
Yeah, but anyway.
Okay, I thought you were coming out as a...
I think there's a more sophisticated version of better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, which is like Confucius.
Very violent today.
No, but like it's better to have the ability to do something and not need it.
Yes.
Rather than think, well, I need to be able to do that, and the opportunity passes, you miss it because you couldn't do it.
Exactly, yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you have to fight off invaders.
Good, I'm glad we covered that off. That's not part of good governance.
Yeah. So, so where do we start then, Jack? So, the first point here is that it can help you build trust and credibility.
Totally, yeah.
In what way, I suppose? What's the thought process there?
Well, ultimately, by thinking about what good governance means, like what are the practices you want to adopt, you are building that credibility, and it's obviously visible as well, because this is ultimately good governance. It's around how you treat your customers, how you treat your employees, how you treat your suppliers or your wider stakeholders, basically. So by you demonstrating you take a huge amount of care in that customer due diligence process, which is often kind of very cursory in a lot of businesses, like they'll take on anyone. But if you demonstrate real commitment to that customer due diligence, it shows that there's a real prestige, and customers will appreciate that more.
I was listening to a book this morning, because as you know, I can't read. So I was listening to Daniel Priestley's Oversubscribed, and he talks about this, and it slightly on topic, but close enough, I think. He talks about, some restaurants have a dress code. Well, you probably think, got to wear a shirt and tie. It must be nice. It's that same thing. It's like, if you can just walk in somewhere, leave a bundle of cash and walk away with whatever you want, well, what controls and checks are they putting on things? Whereas if there is a barrier of entry to a business, it makes you think, well, they must be doing something good, because they can actually afford to turn people away.
Yeah.
They must be a good business that a lot of people want to work with. And that the due diligence, the checking who you are, do we know who you are, where's the source of your funds, that kind of work, it's just demonstrating that you only want to work with businesses who are themselves credible.
Exactly, and
which mirrors on the business doing the checks, doesn't it?
Exactly, and it's the same kind of on the purchasing side. If you can show you've got a really strong sustainable purchasing policy, and that you look after them, that I guarantee I'll pay you in 30 days.
I was going to say, because there's an implied reciprocation there, isn't it? If you're a good supplier, we'll treat you well.
Yeah, and again, you're only going to attract the best suppliers. Like, I want to sell stuff to you, and that means you can provide a better quality of product to your customer,
and they'll give you a better service. It's just. Yeah.
And then on the employee side as well, like if you we're a real wage employer, we offer these benefits. Like, you're going to attract better people.
And just as importantly, the things we won't tolerate from our workforce.
Yeah.
We're not going to have someone turning up and abusive to the rest of their colleagues. All right, well, you're out. The rest of the people will feel more protected and loyal because you've had their back.
Exactly.
So that's all governance, isn't it?
That's built into your governance, into your HR and your manual, etc., etc. So yeah.
And a lot of places do this like informally anyway, don't they? But do we need to though make this kind of open so people know what to expect?
Yeah, I think it's
like transparency over this point. And this isn't about bragging about how good you are. It's about setting the standards of the people you want to work with.
Absolutely, and that's it. The transparency side of things. It means that everyone knows exactly what they're getting, and that's where a lot of relationships break down. On customer and supplier side, is that lack of transparency. That, oh, what's this extra 400 quid on my bill? Oh, well, this was this surcharge. Oh, you didn't tell me about that surcharge.
Yeah.
Or employees, the relationship breaks down like, oh, well, I thought, what's happened with my payslip here? Oh, well, did I not tell you about the
You didn't
uniform?
work Sunday. I didn't know I was meant to work Sunday.
Yeah. I didn't know about that uniform deduction. Like you said that we got free uniform. Oh yeah, but you get £1,000 worth of uniform, but we take it off you over a 24-month period. Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, thanks for that.
So again, it's all about that credibility, and I think people are keen to pass on referrals, but where the relationship breaks down is where there's not necessarily those policies and procedures, that governance in place, where they'll go like, yeah, he was really good, but he didn't tell me about that, and that's not always.
Yeah.
Because when you get a referral, you're less likely to go into that. You kind of go, it's a done deal almost.
Yeah. No, I get you. So, so the next thing then is about attracting investment.
Yes.
And I suppose I can give you a real life example of this. I deal with a lot of landlords, a lot of property people, and I know there are now lenders. I think it's nationwide. I'm not giving mortgage advice here, but I think nationwide have a product where if you can demonstrate that you're going to invest in energy efficiency on your property, they'll not charge you interest on that element of the loan. It's very restricted and it's only up to a certain balance. But that's clearly them saying we want to lend to do good. We want to do good with our lend.
Yeah.
And I think there's more and more examples of it. And that's a very large, nationwide building society. It's a huge entity. Putting their money where their mouth is on something like that.
Definitely.
And there are other examples now, aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty much across the board, across most, especially on the business side of things, like on high street lenders, private equity. I mean, even businesses that are looking to kind of acquire other businesses and going through that process of due diligence, they'll be looking at that sort of stuff. What's your ESGs, policies, etc. Because it all filters into the sustainability of the business.
Yeah.
Because if you can turn around and go like, well, you're in a high risk area in terms of your, carbon footprint, or your kind of your social policies, etc. You're dealing with, you're dealing in a certain area of the market. Like we need to understand how you're going to mitigate those risks, and obviously that will affect the multiple that we're willing to pay for this business. Because
we're not going to pay over the odds for a business where you haven't thought about the future,
which could potentially go bang in 5 years.
Yeah. And this comes on to the next thing, which is risk management as well, isn't it? People investing in businesses are weighing up risk and reward. They might go, you've got a cracking business, you're making loads of money, you've got a large workforce who turn up every day and do things for you. But if that's all at risk, it doesn't really matter, does it?
Yeah.
If your industry is not going to exist tomorrow and you haven't planned for that, or you haven't put protections in place to protect you from the issues that could arise from that risky activity.
Yeah.
You're just leaving yourself wide open, aren't you?
Totally, yeah. I mean, if we use a real life example of what Rishi's just announced, which is around the smoking ban, that's some pretty draconian laws that go into place. But what's to stop? I'm not going to say the government can do this, but what's to stop them if they stop doing like, right, we're going to be banning, logistics from China coming in going forward. Suddenly, my entire supply chain's based in China. All right, well, have you thought about how you're going to mitigate that risk? Because again, it falls into your carbon footprint. Like, well, if you're on course to try and get to net zero by 2030 or whatever the date is that the government decide now.
Yesterday.
Like, what's the plan there? Like, because 2030 is not a million miles away. Yeah. And thinking, well, we'll just carry on doing it and see what happens. Like, that's not really an option anymore.
Yeah, because someday never comes. We'll get there. Something will happen someday.
Yeah, exactly.
No, these things need active input, not passive observation. Don't.
Totally, yeah.
But So again, on the risk management, I think by just putting these things in place, having your proper governance in place in a business, it'll help you to, whether we're talking about environmental or social change, there's always something happening. The world's fluid, it's dynamic.
Yeah.
The way any business will operate in 5 years will be different from today. The basics, the core will be the same, but it'll always change. And I think just having good governance will ensure that at least a couple of times a year you're asking those questions, won't it?
Yeah,
so
totally.
we've got a policy that says we need to do this. Is this still right? Do we need to think about, do we need to change that?
Yeah, I've been chatting with a charity recently, and they've got a risk register. And funny enough, we're putting ESG on the list because, coming back to the point around funding, similarly, a lot of grant funders out there are going to be looking at ESG in terms of what are your plans for carbon reduction? What are your plans to tackle some of these issues around diversity and inclusion?
Because if you're trying to deliver a project on behalf of Oxfam or Marie Curie or something, they're not going to want that money to go somewhere where you haven't thought about these things.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
They're going to expect that to be there.
Even more so if you're dealing in a particular area, like if you're dealing with kids or education, for example, like if you haven't got this sort of stuff squared out,
it's just a no-go, isn't it?
It's just like, well, sorry, you're blacklisted from all of our funding.
And it's not enough just to have your security CRB check. It's not called that now, is it? DSB. What's it called?
Yes.
DBS. Thank you, producer James. It's not enough just to go, oh yeah, we're fine, we've got a DBS check. No, we need more than that. We kind of just go, well, someone checked you once, so just come in and do whatever you want.
Yeah, crack on, by all means.
Again, you've got to have more than that. And I suppose the next thing then is, the next topic here is it leads on to long-term sustainability. Yeah, so... And is that just because you're forward, pulling these together forces you to look forward?
Yeah.
Forces you to think longer than...
Exactly, it's you thinking about what your industry, what your business is going to look like in the longer term. And by understanding what that's going to be, like, you can make the necessary changes today to make that happen, essentially. And it comes back to a really interesting stat. I was at a talk back in June, and it was a futurist there, and he said that the study that he conducted was there was 51% of millennials think that the current form of capitalism doesn't work.
I've just highlighted that. Yeah,
it's a fascinating stat, which I think probably people will look at that, and depending on what people's views on various generations are, would probably think it's a bit contentious. But the reality is that these millennials make me sound like I'm not one of them.
I was going to say, you lot.
Yeah, over the next 5 to 10 years.
What am I now? Am I a boomer? I'm probably a boomer.
Probably,
yeah.
Gen X or something like that.
I feel a lot of affinity to the gammon boomer kind of...
Yeah, you with your knitted jumpers.
This isn't knitted, is it? Who knows? Sorry.
But ultimately, these people, a lot of them are kind of in the entrepreneurial space, so some of them are kind of at the head of their game, but they're the natural progression into smaller businesses, owner-managed businesses, family businesses, that those generations are coming through, taking over the ownership, taking over the leadership of these smaller businesses. Yeah. And they've got different views to what their parents have.
Yeah.
And it means that they're going to take over, and they're not necessarily going to respect the status quo of how the business is run. They may look at their customer base and go, that's not reflective of my values and behaviours.
And it doesn't matter whether the non-millennials think, yeah, but capitalism is the only proven method that's actually increased world, wealth and happiness. Yeah.
And we're not saying it
doesn't matter whether you think they're just naive. Wait till they grow up and realise how the world. It doesn't matter. Yeah. At the minute, 51% of people don't agree with you. You can't ignore that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who's right or wrong.
And I don't think these 51% are a bunch of communist socialists.
Yeah, they're not all
They're more advocates of an ethical form of capitalism, so it's more of a...
Because they're not saying they don't want capitalism in the form it is today.
Yeah.
It's the greedy capitalist,
they want to balance the profit with the purpose and the people and the planet.
So they're not trying to burn it all down, not all of them. Mm-hmm. They're trying to tweak it. And again, why would you miss out on that pound, on that dollar from that person, that buyer?
Yeah.
You'd be fooled to miss out on it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, so if there's businesses out there that have a bunch of customers you know, who are of similar size, a family business, for example, the dad or the granddad or whoever is kind of at that, you know, 65 stage, looking at passing on the business down to their kids, and they're going, well, I don't really get on with them because I don't agree with them. Tough luck. Well, they're going to look at you when they take over and the dad's not there anymore. They're going to be looking at you going like, well, are you the future of our business? Like, should we still be working with you?
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important for businesses to adapt.
Yeah, adapt or die.
Adapt or die.
I think that's Darwin, is it?
It's word to that fact.
It's Darwinian, certainly Darwinian, isn't it? So, you know, the next thing is, you know, it'll give you an enhanced stakeholder relations. Mm-hmm. How does that work then, Jack? Why would it give you enhanced? Because see, stakeholders, you've got your employees, customers, suppliers.
Part of this ethical capitalism, I suppose, is that you get to know, you have to have those honest conversations with your stakeholders in terms of like, this is what we fundamentally agree with. In order to do this, in order to get on board with us, this is what you've got to do. It opens up that wider communication, and people can align their values and behaviours. And when that works, it means that you as a unit, like as a business unit, are so tightly knit. Like if your customers understand you completely, your suppliers understand you, then you become a hell of a lot more sticky, and also you're bonded by these shared views and sort of aligned values.
Yeah. And
similarly on the employee side, if you can again get a load of people that buy into your vision, and you know the sustainable vision, you know, sort of underpinned by strong governance, again they become more sticky. That builds loyalty, it builds passion, and ultimately people want to hang around more. They want to work with you, they want to work for you.
Is there an element here as well, Jack, again, you know, we'll go back to something we said earlier about openness and transparency. Is there an element of like, well actually they might not necessarily agree with 100% of what you say, but at least they can believe in when you say something, they believe it's going to happen. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Because I've known politicians in the past and I think, I disagree fundamentally, but I believe you believe it, and that's quite powerful.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And I think it ties in a lot with kind of the B Corp stuff that we do, because part of it is, you know, buying into it yourself. That's part one almost. Part two is then we turn outwards. We look at our customer base, we look at our supplier base, and we go, right, well, how can you as a collective be better as well? How can we help you be better?
Yeah.
And in some cases,
it's quite hard to get that right, isn't it? Because to be honest, it could easily come across as preachy, and they might be sitting thinking, oh, these guys need to shut up about this.
Totally, yeah.
Stop trying to convert me. I'm just going to burn oil, and you know.
Similarly, the flip side of that, if you don't talk about it, can be seen as you're not being authentic, and suddenly this B Corp credential, you know, these good governance policies, your ESG policies, etc., all become a bit greenwashy.
Yeah.
Technical term.
So is it worth describing greenwashing very briefly? Because again, we'll just start with explaining greenwashing, just the 10-second version.
I suppose the best way of putting it is that you are kind of overinflating, or not overinflating is probably the best way. Your supposed green credentials, the initiatives you're putting out, they're not actually as truthful or as strong as you're saying they are.
Yeah. So say if your business was burning plastics, but don't worry, we plant loads of trees. It's like, yeah, but you could stop burning plastic.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to plant trees
but we focus on
nothing wrong with planting trees, by the way. But what I mean is, like, you know, it's like you can't just do something good to cancel the bad.
Yeah.
You should try and stop, eliminate, you know, reduce the bad.
Yeah, and it's it makes it sound bad, because I think offsetting is a good thing on the whole, but essentially it's...
Well, where you can't eliminate or reduce, well, offsetting might be the only option.
Yeah.
But you've got to explore the eliminate and you know, reduce first, haven't you?
Yeah. But it's ultimately coming down to that sort of inauthentic idea of saying that we're doing something when you're not actually doing it.
Yeah. Which again, I think people respect that honesty.
Yeah.
but if it feels inauthentic, then that'll do you more reputational damage.
Exactly.
But also, to be fair, not that this is the topic of it, but if you don't believe in any of this, I think it would be more honest to say we're not going to bother.
Yeah, it's nonsense.
But again, just be honest about it, because that'll attract your own audience as well. So from a marketing perspective, honesty is the first thing. These things you need to believe in, but also there are just commercial reasons for them anyway. So, but yeah, you might just go, I don't care, I'm going to burn plastic all day long. But at least be honest about what you're going to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't try and pretend it's something else.
Yeah, it needs to be authentic, it needs to be deliberate.
Sorry, go on.
Yes, that's what I was basically going to say.
So the next thing then is regulatory compliance.
Good old fun.
And again, well, who cares about this? I mean,
What do you mean you don't care about compliance?
I said, who cares about this?
To them I say, what do you mean?
It's a rhetorical question, Jack. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You should care about it. We care.
Curious.
So you might think, well, why do accountants care about this? But we are regulated, and we're regulated in the work we do. Solicitors are regulated. Most the medical professions are heavily regulated. There's a lot of regulated professions out there.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I think it feels to me like in some areas there is a push for regulation. So, again, I mentioned landlords earlier. The Renters Reform Bill has in there that landlords are it's almost going to be a register of landlords.
Yeah.
Where you're going to be able to say, well, is Jack any good? Well, if you want to be on the list, you have to demonstrate certain attributes to be able to demonstrate that you are a landlord, but you're a good landlord and you do things right. So there will inevitably be a need to, if not direct regulation, but a test to pass to enable you to access or to gain entry to certain areas. So yeah, I think it's becoming more and more an issue, and we're starting to see these regulators start to go, well, if you want to be in our club, this is what we expect from you.
Yeah. And
it's their club, so it's up to them, isn't it?
Totally.
So again, you might not care about it, but if you want to be in their club, you're going to have to care about it.
And we're seeing this regulation coming already, kind of in the ESG space. So the larger companies now have requirements to make certain ESG disclosures as part of their annual reports, their financial statements, etc. So they have to do it. And we've already said this already once, but what happens in larger companies does generally fall down to smaller companies. In terms of stuff that's kind of in the more immediate pipeline, I think we've talked about this a few times, is the Better Business Act that's coming into place. Well, it's currently being lobbied through Parliament at the moment. And ultimately what that's aimed at is eliminating shareholder primacy in the Companies Act, where directors are their primary purpose is to enrich shareholders. Yeah. This Better Business Act is trying to open up directors to prioritise different stakeholders, not just the shareholders. So they have more freedom to go, well, actually, if they care more about certain areas, then they can put more time and energy in terms of the business resources into the environment, into their people.
Because at the moment, the only thing regulating the activities of a director are statutory things. You can't not pay someone minimum wage, for instance. You can't not give someone holidays. But there's nothing in there that says you have to be pleasant and smile and treat your employees otherwise well. There are legal minimum expectations that you can't duck out of.
Yeah.
And equally, you can say what you want in your advertisement as long as it's not false or misleading. But you can go, we love burning plastic. You can say what you want, can't you? But the only thing that restricts those directors from doing it is they want to be paid, and the shareholders have ultimate control over who the directors are. Yeah. So they're looking after the shareholders in priority to anyone else, and that's what you mean by the supremacy of the shareholder.
Of the primacy, yeah.
The primacy, yeah. And it would be a bold director who kind of goes, well, I know this is going to be bad for the bottom line, but I'm going to do it anyway. If they didn't have that shareholder endorsement. So is this hoping to then say, yeah, well, actually, here are some areas where we don't mind. Like, we're going to support you through legislation to say you can do these things.
It's arguably within the SME and OMB space. Like, arguably, they can be even bolder with this stuff, because ultimately, in 99% of those cases, the shareholder is the director.
Yeah.
So it's not as if you're getting a heap load of pressure from...
You haven't got to turn up at the AGM and get, get roasted off the shareholders.
Yeah, you're not going to have some private equity person standing there going like, what the hell are you spending all this money on your employees for? Or why have you spent a load of time volunteering? Or why have you done this and that? And why have you focused so much on spending £2 million on converting your fleet into electric vehicles and stuff like that? Because ultimately you are that person who would be asking those questions already as a shareholder. So they should look at that to have more freedom. They can go even further because they wouldn't have, because the shareholder, as you said, the shareholders have the choice on who the directors are. Yeah. So unless they're schizophrenic and they have 2 different personalities, they're very unlikely to vote themselves out of out of their director's office. Yeah. So.
But I think interestingly there though, I kind of jokingly said about turning up at the AGM and there's a bunch of shareholders lobbying you and campaigning you. Often with bigger companies though, their main institutional investors are things like pension schemes, your Avivas and your M&G and Standard Life or whoever they are. Yeah. As there is a demand from consumers to have pensions that invest ethically, that will inevitably lead back to those boardrooms, won't it? To say, yeah, we know this is going to hit the bottom line, but we need you to behave better. And again, that will always end up filtering down the line, won't it? Somehow it's going to catch you somewhere.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because the stakeholders, you're either a supplier to a bigger business, everyone supplies up the food chain, doesn't matter where you are, you always supply up the chain. That's going to come down to you from above. Your employees are going to say, we want better, and we're going to vote with our feet. And in competitive job market, they'll just go where they want. Or your shareholders, or your customer, like someone is just going to go, hold on, we expect better from you. Yeah. Whether it comes from legislation or any of the areas. But again, why would you not try and get ahead of that curve?
Totally, yeah. I mean, I'd be very surprised to see a business that wouldn't be affected by this in some way. It may not be now, it may be some point in the future, but again, they'll look back at this point and go, well, I could have done something about it now. Yeah. Because things are changing, and not taking a risk, not acting on this now is a risk, whilst a lot of people would consider putting a lot of time and effort into this to be risky. Yeah. Because what's the payoff? Yeah. How does this affect me?
Again, though, take a view. The bigger the business you are, the more time you should spend on this, because the more these things are more likely to impact you. But to not think about it at all is also a risk, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a choice. You're choosing not to do anything. Well, just remember that. I suppose when it bites you on the backside down the line.
Totally.
What's the conclusion then, Jack? I mean, I'm going to see if you get this word for word because you've told me what the conclusion is. But I mean, you kind of summarise it there as it's not just a trend; it's something that's coming, isn't it? Yeah. Which is kind of what we've just been saying. We were almost concluding this before I asked you for a conclusion. But what's the biggest mistake people are making in this area? Then again,
if you picked it up now, you'd be an early adopter, and I think that's a fantastic opportunity for a lot of people to be in. But again, they probably won't, because there's not that legislative sort of influence there to force you to do it.
No one's making you do it, so why bother? Yeah.
Exactly, but if you can get ahead of the game, flush out, really focus on that governance, you will see a massive improvement in the business further down the line.
I mean, probably not in the same way, but there's probably people who sat with computers in the early 90s and went, well, I'll tell you what, this internet's something in it, and then never done anything with it. It's funny, you look at the biggest companies in the world now, that they're all tech companies. Yeah. Like, do you foresee ESG being something where you think, well, yeah, you should really be looking at it now, because actually this is going to fundamentally change the business world down the line?
Yes. I think totally. It's
not an activity in itself, but it's more a way of being, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the conclusion from the previous one is that ESG is not bolted onto your business. It is your business. Like as you said before, like the pressures come from all angles from the ESG. It comes from your suppliers. It will come from your customers. It will come from your employees. It will come from your shareholders if you're a bigger business. ultimately it's going to come from government legislation, it's going to come from HMRC.
And again, if you're aspirational, that normally means you want to grow. This will hit you. If you want to be one of the, I want to be a top 10 supplier of anything in the country, well, you will never avoid this. So if you're happy where you are and you never want to be any bigger and you don't mind possibly losing it all, fine. Yeah. But if you're aspirational, you need to plan this, don't you?
Yeah, and planning isn't, it's a 5-10 year exercise here. So ultimately, you need to be thinking not just about attracting new business now, but what attracting new business is going to look like in 5-10 years time. And again, that so much depends on, well, who are the key decision makers of my potential customers going to be, and what do they think, what do they believe in, or what do I believe in, and therefore what do I need to look out for?
Yeah, and you might sneakily think, I'm not going to bother, I'm just going to sell out in 5 years. But you might not find a buyer, might you? No,
because again, they will look at this and go, well,
why would you buy? If you might be large, profitable, have great systems and all kinds in place, but they don't want to turn around your tanker from scratch in 5 years, do they?
No, they don't.
So if you're trying to sell something of any value down the line as well, again, you're going to have to, to at least have considered this on.
Yeah, just like a business now wouldn't buy you if you hadn't got, accounting software, or your books and records were in a shoebox or something.
Or stock controls, or
or employee contracts.
You wouldn't buy a warehouse if it hadn't had health and safety training. Not like you just wouldn't do these people and go, no, I'm all right, thanks. Yeah.
A bold prediction, that sort of stuff will be the equivalent, like not having any ESG policies, procedures, governance, etc. If that stuff's not in place in the next 5-10 years, then that could be as big a glaring omission as that stuff is now when starting a business.
Yeah. Good. Thank you very much, Jack.
Pleasure
as always. I'm sorry my jumper wasn't up to standard.
Yeah. Typical gammon.
I'll have to see where you get these. What colour's that?
I'd probably put.
You've got a child coming. You'll see. You'll know what colour that is.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll know what colour that
Not
is.
Not safe
soon.
for work colour, but
stains won't show on it. Let's put it that way.
That's true. Yeah.
So that was ESG part 2. I think part 2.
Part 2.
As always, if this is a topic where you think, what's that about? We've got a previous episode where we talked on this. There's probably a bit of overlap there, but I think this is an issue that's becoming more and more relevant. And as a team, we're very happy to help you on this ESG journey. And it doesn't have to be a big exercise. It can start with a cuppa.
Exactly.
We'll take it from there. Thanks very much. I hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, let us have your comments. Give us any feedback. Reach out to the team and we'll be happy to chat.